Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered why little kids and grown-ups seem to notice different things about the world around them? This new study dives deep into how our brains learn to look at objects and what we pay attention to as we grow up. Imagine you see a toy. To really understand it, your brain needs to do two things. First, it needs to figure out that the toy is its own separate thing, not just part of the background or mixed up with other toys. This is called individuation. Second, your brain needs to figure out what that toy is. Is it a red car, a blue ball, a stuffed bear? That is classification. Adults are really good at this, but how do kids learn to do it? And does what they focus on change as they get older? That is the big question this research tackles. So, the scientists wanted to see how young children, like babies and preschoolers, use different kinds of clues to understand objects. They looked at two main types of clues: spatial cues, like where an object is it on the left or right? And featural cues, like what an object looks like, its color, shape, or pattern. They had a hunch that as kids grow up, the way they weigh these clues might change. Maybe babies rely more on where things are, while older kids start paying more attention to what things look like based on their features. To test this, they did a clever experiment with little ones. They showed 12-month-old babies two objects. These objects were different in both their location and their features, say a blue circle on the left and a green square on the right. The babies were trained to know that one of these objects was more special because it was linked to a fun visual reward. After training, they tested the babies. They presented the objects in ways that only use one type of clue to see if the babies remembered. For example, they'd show two identical blue circles and see if the baby looked to the left, where the special object used to be. Then they'd show two objects that were different colors, like blue and green, but side by side to see if the baby chose the color that was previously rewarded. Crucially, they also put the clues in conflict. Imagine the blue object was the special one, but it moved to the right while the green object was on the left. Where would the baby look? This conflict told them which cue the baby trusted more. And what did the babies do? Mostly they stuck with the location. Even when the color changed, they tended to look at the spot where the special object used to be. They seemed to understand where things were more than what they looked like. It's like for a baby, knowing where the toy is more important than its exact color or shape. Then, they tested 4-year-old children using a similar game, but on a touchscreen, they found something quite different. These preschoolers could learn both the location and the features of the special object. But when the clues were put in conflict, they tended to go with the feature. If the blue ball was the special one, they'd choose the blue ball even if it moved to the other side, ignoring the original location. So it looks like there's a definite shift. Babies prioritize location while preschoolers start to favor features. This makes a lot of sense when you think about what those skills are good for. Location or space is super important for figuring out that something is a separate object, and keeping track of it, that is individuation. Features like color and shape are more important for knowing what that object is, that is classification. But why does this shift happen? The researchers had an idea. Maybe it is about the main goal our brain has at different ages. When we're really young, the biggest job is to just figure out that there are separate objects in the world. As we get older, we learn to name things and understand their categories. So classification becomes more important. To test this idea, they used computers. They trained artificial intelligence models, which are like computer brains, in two different ways. One AI model was trained to just find and outline objects in pictures. This is like the individuation goal. The other AI model was trained not just to find objects but also to name them, which is like the classification goal. They used a huge collection of photos called MS-COCO for this. After training these AI brains, they gave them the same kind of location versus feature puzzle that they gave to the babies and preschoolers. And guess what? The AI that was trained to individuate objects, just like the babies, paid more attention to the spatial location. The AI that was trained to classify objects, like the preschoolers, paid more attention to the features. It was like the computer's visual objective or goal determined how it weighed the clues, just like the researchers suspected for children. This is a really neat finding. It suggests that the changes we see in children's attention as they grow might not just be about their brains maturing, but also about what their brains are trying to achieve at different stages. Early on, it is all about building that basic understanding of objects in space. Later, it transitions to really understanding what those objects are and what they mean. Think about it. When you are a baby, just knowing that that thing over there is a distinct object that won't disappear is a huge accomplishment. It helps you explore and learn. As you get older and start talking, you learn the words for things, and those words are tied to features like color and shape. Language helps you focus on those features for identification. The study also touches on how different parts of the brain might be involved. There are these two big pathways in our visual system. One, called the dorsal pathway, is more about where things are, and it seems to develop earlier. The other, the ventral pathway, is more about what things are, and it takes longer to fully develop. So, the early reliance on spatial information might be linked to the earlier development of the dorsal pathway. And the later shift to features could be related to the maturing ventral pathway. Now, it is important to remember that computer models aren't exactly like human brains. They can show us what is possible and provide good evidence for a theory, but they don't replicate the entire human experience. For example, the computers weren't dealing with the same complex social or emotional factors that influence children. Also, the way the kids played the game was a bit different from how the computers processed the images. One focused on looking, the other on processing the whole picture. But overall, this research gives us a fascinating glimpse into how our visual world understanding develops. It shows that what we pay attention to isn't fixed, it changes, and it might be guided by our primary task at different ages, whether that is just finding individual objects or learning to identify them. It is a journey from where is it to what is it. So, what does this all mean for us? It tells us that children are actively learning and adapting how they see the world. It explains, in part, why very young children might be more easily distracted by movement or location, while older children might be more drawn to the details of an object's appearance. This understanding could help educators and parents tailor their approaches to teaching and interacting with children, recognizing that their focus is naturally shifting. This study is a great starting point, but there is always more to explore. For instance, how does language development specifically interact with this shift? Does learning to name things speed up the transition from spatial to featural focus? And what about social cues? Do they influence what babies and young children prioritize? This has been a really interesting deep dive into how our visual system grows. If you found this as cool as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more incredible science breakdowns. Let me know in the comments what other research topics you'd love for us to explore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.